know if anybody can hear us, but anyway, good evening, everyone. We are having some technical difficulties. We can't see ourselves because I think our internet is very slow. But if you could, guys, just give me some indication in the comments below whether you can see us, that would be great. We are in for a very interesting lecture tonight with Dr. Cohen. Dr. Cohen will be talking about unmasking the truth about toxins and poisons. So that's very interesting topic for most of you. And we're going to be also talking about how to remove those toxins and how to detox your body. So stay tuned for the evening. We're sorry to miss you guys last weekend. I hope everybody had good Memorial weekend. And we're here tonight, going to finish as usual with meditation. And if you have any questions, please let us know. So go ahead, Dr. Cohen.
Can you see if anybody can hear us?
Yeah, they can hear us.
They can?
And see us, yes.
Okay. Sorry to miss all you guys on last Monday, Memorial Day. I hope you enjoyed the break. We had certain plans for tonight, but I think events around the world have changed a lot of that. And I'm going to, like I usually do, I'm going to ad lib and see where this goes and how to make this into a positive event. This weekend, I was texting my daughter and I was avoiding the news and had no idea how that murder in Minneapolis had extended all around the country. And there's a lot of very angry and disturbed people that had experienced decades and centuries of abuse and discrimination and racism. And I've never understood racism because there's zero scientific evidence that there is such a thing as races. There are cultural differences, but not major ones. But there's no really separated races. We all come biologically come from the same source in Africa, and we've evolved in different directions. And there's no place in any of our hearts for discriminating against anybody. My life dealing with people from Black American culture. My friends that come from Black American were some of the smartest and most creative people. And if I've had any influence and benefit for others, it came from a lifetime of association, particularly musicians. Some of the greatest influence I've had in my life was Dizzy Gillespie, B.B. King, many who I've worked with and treated over the years. And they had the most insight and brilliance. Many people that know me know that a big hero of mine is Charlie Parker. And the idea that we talk about quantum physics and science, that was expressed in music in the American jazz before even the physicists wrote it down. So I understand the outrage. I'm outraged and hurt about what happened, but we have to understand. So the topic of this evening is going to be unmasking. Now, it's interesting that we're dealing with a virus that's coming to influence our lives. It's had more influence than our culture. We've changed everything because of the virus. And the virus becomes more symptomatic, causing more symptoms and more disease in areas where we've mostly violated the environment and have not lived according to protecting nature, but exploiting it. Those are the areas that we have the most viruses. And as we've already talked about in the past, that viruses are free-floating information looking for a place to reproduce themselves. And human beings, in many cases, are that place because we produce the proteins they need to pass down their genes. And the key thing is this unmasking. It's just like the reaction to the abhorrent murder for no reason that I'm aware of. It's the same thing with the environmental poisons. And as you know, that many of you have come and seen me that have been, because of your own genetics and more exposure, have had unexplained physical conditions and mental conditions and emotional conditions that correlate to our exposure to toxins that came from man. I believe I said this story one time, maybe 6 weeks ago, 1 month, that when my Uncle Robert, who was a mailman, was born, he's my mother's older brother, he was born with exactly one environmental toxin, and that was lead, because we store lead in our bones, and when a mother in gestation is forming a fetus, starts releasing her own minerals so the baby's structure can get formed, it starts releasing minerals from the bones. And one of the major ones was lead, which came from the Industrial Revolution. So people that were born with lead poisoning were born with the lead coming from their own mothers. After World War II, babies started being born with thousands of man-made toxins starting their life. And there's almost zero studies of how these toxins interact with each other and how they interact with our body unless the people stop dropping dead. And when we started measuring them way back in the 1980s, we started looking at full body toxicity and finding heavy loads of toxic chemicals that were making people's lives miserable, that were shortening their life and causing aberrant behavior and understandings and destroying their intellectual development. And we would measure the toxins. And then the next thing was to learn how to remove these toxins from the body. But that was only the beginning, because we couldn't answer the question in those days, at least not scientifically, how are these man-made toxins, and some of them we were getting even from China and from Japan and other places, they were scattering around the world as we polluted the world and weren't able to clear it. We have the same function in our own bodies, that we clear some toxins, but we don't clear all toxins. And just like we're now talking about, are we able to withstand exposure to this new virus, this Corona-19 virus? Some of us can clear it, and some of us cannot clear it. And we didn't know that. And then there came about now antibody tests, just like they're looking at antibody tests to see if you've been exposed to COVID, because only 3% of people who are exposed become dangerously sick from the virus. And the people that become dangerously sick are the ones that are carrying around these extreme toxins and they have vulnerable receptor sites around their body. Those vulnerable sites are usually angiotensin 2 receptors, and they, in the beginning of the outbreak, we thought that that was the entryway to the lungs, and it was in some cases, but it's also, we have angiotensin receptors, which control blood pressure, control ability to get rid of toxins, the ability to live in moderation and also to live in homeostasis um, throughout our body. And people are getting exhibiting more and more bizarre symptoms. And some latest reports are that this virus might be recombinant. I don't mean to keep going over the. In other words, it's a merger of two separate viruses into a brand new species, and it takes some time before our immune system learns it. And those of you that have heard me in the past realize at this point that our approach is to make people stronger, not just to kill viruses or avoid viruses, but make us so our body can handle it and recognize, and we know scientifically that that's calcium bicarbonate, which is calcium lactate in our formula, vitamin D, and vitamin F. And those three things educate our immune system to differentiate what's a foreign pathogen and toxin and what's not. So how do we live and be positive? One of my great teachers that I owe that influenced my own approach to life taught me that if you can heal one person at a time, you can heal the universe. And the gateway to healing anybody and healing ourselves starts with forgiveness. And the first person we have to forgive for all the mistakes we made, and we've made a lot of them, all of us have. And we have to start taking responsibility and also forgiving. So what does healing mean? As I've told you guys many, many times, each one of us, each one of you, was not born by accident. The fact that you can deal with not only these problems, but also the opportunity to grow and contribute to others means that you've overcome impossible odds to have this life. And each one of you has a responsibility to get healthy as you can, to learn as much as you can, and that your choices become fertilizer for your growth and your ability to help and heal yourself and heal your family and heal other people you care about, and reduce these incidences of mental disturbance that result in hatred, racism, or even just blaming and shaming others as the cause of the problems. We've worked so hard to accept everyone for who they are and allow them, each one of us, to progress and heal others. It's quite an opportunity. So if we can heal people that are suffering, removing their suffering, and removing the causes of their suffering. They can encourage others to do something that makes this paradise of earth. And one day I like to talk about how this is a paradise, and it is the most perfect environment for us to grow rapidly spiritually and create beautiful, elegant consciousness that confirms to the tree of life or the actual form of a crystal. Many people are surprised when I tell them that each cell of our body operates as a crystal. And if it operates as a crystal, it's dependent on light. Light that we call pure and clear. There are receptor cells on every cell in our body for light. And when they're stimulated through an enzyme called cytochrome P oxygenase, and they're stimulated through a certain light frequencies that cause red blood cells to separate and have the ability to carry more oxygen. In ancient time, they talked about the life force. We talked about it last week, the different parts of the soul. And the life force was what they didn't understand, but what we do understand now is basically oxygen. And as the environment degrades and the tensions rise, and life starts reformatting itself to survive in a toxic world, we start getting more and more aberrations, and our immune system, it takes time for it to become clear of what's a toxin, what's not a toxin, what prevents us from being genuine and what causes us to be toxic and phony. And so we've been using laboratory tests that can tell us whether the toxins that we're all exposed, and we don't have the science to know how they interact with each other, that we can use light therapy, which we do in our office, and we also involved in designing it. Those that want to listen to it can listen to in YouTube. There's one that I lectured at probably 8 years ago in Boulder, Colorado, on how that works and how that creates well-being. That we can do a blood test that will tell us if the toxins are affecting you. Years ago when that test first came out, I had a fireman that was rapidly deteriorating and assumed he was exposed to flame retardants and putting out fires. He was 52 years old. And I was wrong. We did the test, and he was pretty clear on most things. He was in safe levels, except for one chemical. It was isocyanide. And guess what isocyanide is? That's put into new mattresses that are not organic. And his level was so high. And when I read him the results or explained to him the results, he said, "What's the first thing I need to do? Because I have terrible pain in my elbows and my legs, and in the last 6 weeks, it's just getting intolerable." And I said, "What have you changed in 6 weeks?" "Well, I bought a very expensive new mattress." And I said, "Was it organic?" And he said, "No. It was one, I won't mention the company, And I said, the first thing you need to do is get rid of your mattress. And when he got rid of the mattress, and we put him on a proper cleanse for that type of toxin, and then put him on a rebuilding diet, because when you exposed to strong toxins, and we are every single day now, even if you're organic, you're walking around your neighborhood or you're walking around, you're getting exposed. 25% of the poisons generated in China come over to California. Some of the radiation comes over from Japan. And every day we're exposed. If you live in a city that sprays everywhere, you're exposed. Some of us can clear it. We have the genetics or the epigenetics. Some of us cannot. And what makes this more complicated, and we don't have time to go into tonight, but it could have been your ancestor, your great-great-grandparent, or even further down, that was exposed to certain things, and they affect generations later. That's called epigenetics. And so we have the tools. If you have unexplained symptoms and you want to be as safe as possible in this increasingly toxic world, you can invest in testing that, and you can invest in healing what you wounded. If you have diabetes, if you have heart disease, that not only makes you vulnerable to what's called POPs. POPs are different than just poisons. So it's poisons and POP. It's been exposed that very tiny exposure every day to a certain poison can cause a degenerate disease. And if you can control that and know that and live healthy and live through compassion and love and gratitude and trust, and do your best to always tell the truth to yourself and to others, you can generate a most powerful cleanse, which is the cleanse of love. When I first started studying with the Dalai Lama, and he was going through this, and I was teaching myself from different traditions the journey of healing and the journey of repair. We got to a point about the heart, and the Dalai Lama was teaching about compassion. And many people think compassion is feeling sorry for somebody or feeling their pain and wanting to heal them or create an environment where they can heal. But compassion is not that, according to the Dalai Lama. And I've always tried to live by this. Compassion is wanting to work on your problems, your issues. Many of them you brought into this lifetime. Many of them came from your ancestors and your family and your tribe and your community. And wanting to heal them so you can show others that it can be healed, that these are not your destiny. And that's compassion. So what is unmasking? That's not just getting your angiotensin receptors infected, but unmasking is it's being willing to accept the consequences of dealing with the truth. Not taking blame or shame for what's not yours, but taking responsibility for improving what's around you and improving your family and working on yourself. Realizing that a lot of the suffering in the world can be recycled as fertilizer for the soul. And those that want to learn the different aspects of the soul can go to YouTube and listen to 2 weeks ago, the last one we did, where we went into the aspects of the soul and realize that everything in life has effect on everything else, that we're part of life, that our relationship with our families and our children and our grandparents, our relationship with all the animals that we've lost since 1970, around 49% of all the wildlife on this planet was eliminated. If you watch the elephants, if you watch the gorillas, if you watch all the other animals, and watch how they interact, they all have abilities that we don't have, that we gave up so we can start walking around the planet and conquering the planet. And for some reason, that because we can see far and we had a thumb that allowed us to build things, that we are dominant. That this planet was built for us. And we can start creating hellholes of slaughterhouses. And everybody knows that. Myself, when I was a kid, I worked in a chicken coop. They know way in advance the day they were going to be taken to market. And they were so agitated and so afraid. Everybody knows when a pig is taken to a slaughterhouse, its heart starts racing and it starts getting scared. And we are going into areas that are paradise, where life lives in harmony and supports each other. That each plant, some of the native tribes in the Amazon, will look at one plant, and in English there's one word, and they'll have the same plant, they'll have 96 distinct descriptions, different worlds, just like we have 96 descriptions for some technology that we invent, some AI technology, some computers. But all of what we invent doesn't come close to what nature is capable of doing. And unless we work together, and by working together means plant a garden, support organic farmers, insisting that all animals be raised with support and compassion, we will be producing not only lethal toxins, but we'll be producing lethal viruses, because this planet won't be able to support life, which it's already showing that at our level. And people, actually it was one of my daughters that asked me about, the murder that we saw on the video. And I said, there's no shortage of mentally disturbed people. We have to clean up our act and clean up our environment. And we have to deal with our own anguish and pain of being part of the human race that's turning this paradise into a place that's making not only humans sick, but other species. The whales, the dolphins, all have abilities, especially healing abilities, that go beyond what we're capable of doing. We're capable of creating technology. We're capable of building roads and cars and airplanes. We're also capable of going into areas that humans weren't designed to go in, creating toxic slaughterhouses where we hire desperate immigrants to work in that are coming from places that they got exposed in there because of lack of hygiene to generate microbial world that is not the same microbial world that existed 50 years ago or 70 years ago. We have brand new species, and they're carried by injured life forms and altered bacteria. They're called bacteriophages. And we have an immune system that is so confused, it's lost its ability to distinguish what's safe and not safe, what's a danger, not a danger. That's inaccurately feeding back where we can eat some spinach or we can eat some GMO soybeans or we can use wheat as a desiccate so we can grow two crops. And that becomes the perfect environment to carry health-altering toxicity. And destroy our paradise. When I studied sacred writings, there was 5 ways of interpreting. This is when I was doing my undergraduate degree. And when you took the first letter of each one, it spelled paradise. That we have just in the sacred writings from multiple traditions, multiple, like the Indian Vedanta Society said that there's multiple pathways. In the Jewish mystical tradition, it's taught that there are 32 pathways back to the heart. And in the 5 books of Moses, it starts with Beit or B and ends with Lamed, which is Lamed is learning and B could be used as a house. You put those letters together, the beginning, the first letter, and the last letter, it spells heart. So the way we heal is to embrace the truth and admit when we're wrong. And we've been wrong for centuries. And so many innocent people with cultures that would guide us to healing were discriminated and murdered en masse. And we've been deprived from their wisdom. And we can't regenerate at once. So we start at one person at a time. Make some commitment. Face something. Learn how to restrain yourself so you do less harm. Don't allow people to convince you that chemical poisons are nutrition. Keep in mind that our bodies are not only carriers of truth, but our bodies are capable of healing. That the whole structural paradise that we live in generates in multiple levels. If the environment wasn't so toxic, somebody wrote, the environment's so toxic. The environment is not toxic, it's what we put into the environment. We use our genius, our brains, that are as complicated as the universe. The multiverses are formed out of the choices we made, and we created the toxicity. The human race did that. And many of us suffer from that, and many of us can't do anything about it. But we can work with it, and we can start somewhere. Each one of us, not one of us, but each one of us is capable of not only improving all this, but creating the potential for another universe that doesn't have these problems. We have the map. The masters gave us the map. The map is the crystal. I think his name was the scientist Marcus Vogel that said each cell of our body is structured like the tree of life. So each cell reproduces over and over again a new beginning. And let's let tonight be a new beginning. And realize that hurting other people and hurting other life for no higher purpose only lowers the level of our consciousness. When I was in my 20s, I had a job teaching young children in 5th grade. And I took them for a weekend to somebody called, his name was Rabbi Horowitz, invited us, the whole class, to Brookline, Massachusetts. And I told him I was vegetarian and I wasn't going to eat the chicken. And he looked me in the eye and he said, "Do you think your consciousness and the chicken's consciousness are the same?" And at the time I said no. Having worked in the chicken coops, I can tell you that I have, hopefully, even at that time, had a higher consciousness than the chicken. Especially scared to death chickens that are about to be taken off to slaughter. And he said, what happens if you pray and meditate and take the energy of the chicken and use that energy to relieve others of suffering? Have you taken that chicken energy and made it into a higher purpose? Didn't make me eat chickens. I couldn't eat chickens and eggs after working in the loo, but it made me more passionate and accepting of people that did eat chicken, especially if this was converting into a higher level of consciousness that generated the passion for searching for the truth. And after going on that trip, I met a healing woman that was considered an asset. Yolanda Bechte was her name. She was from Hungary, and she had a healing institute. And I met her in a conference, and she picked me out of the audience and told me 5 things that were going on in my life, told the audience, and said that she's worked with me many times. And she escaped Hungary during the revolution against the Russian communists. And she was generating a healing energy from her fingers that were studied in Fairleigh Dickinson University by some physicists. And I watched her through the power of touch and her determination, reducing tumors. I watched her working on the legs of somebody that became paralyzed and regenerating right before my eyes, feeling in that. She asked me if I wanted to work with her. I thought about it and I said, no, that's your work. That's not my work. I work in a different way. But watching her, it expanded my understanding of what we are capable of. None of us, including me, have no idea what we're capable of. Some of the very special healers that I had the fortune of meeting all over the world, some of them had no formal education, and some of them had a brilliant formal education. Some of them had PhDs, and some of them lived in very primitive conditions. But each one was not afraid to embrace who they were and realize the potential of what they can do was way beyond what an average society, that basically this society teaches us about limitations. And when I was studying with Dr. Fennelly in the university, and he was talking about taking a course on comparative religions, it hit me when we were studying different religions. They wouldn't have all these rules if people weren't doing them. So what people are doing to each other now is also part of a legacy. But we have also a legacy of very profound teachings. And we have living masters at this moment that live on this earth with the sole purpose of helping everybody. And I encourage each one of you to take advantage of that. And what are we unmasking? First of all, we have to unmask the poisons that we're exposed to that live in our bodies. And so I hope this teaches us that we need to make each day as a special opportunity. Each day to do something that you think you're not capable of doing. and do it with the purpose of worshiping life and its potential, and worshiping healing and creativity. And I hope this was helpful and positive and encouraging, because we need this badly. Thank you so much.
Hi guys, I'm back, and there are a couple of questions from the listeners. So Sophia, Shulamit Sophia is asking, if the environment wasn't so toxic, wouldn't we all be healthier? Would we still have the coronavirus?
Well, we can't answer that one for sure, because we do have the coronavirus. And the coronavirus comes from all the evidence that I've seen by the scientists that I've respect, comes from exposing ourselves, and I include other human beings, to animals, eating animals that carry these viruses, because they lived in environments where the virus is not toxic. So for them, it's not toxic. The problem is that we eat these animals, and that we somehow, like the coronavirus, is the corona 19, is able to convert itself into a new form, which gives it an opportunity to survive in our environment. And what we need to do, so we don't become the end product, but we become unmask whatever is making the virus dangerous to each and every one of us. If we didn't live in a toxic environment, we'd have a lot more health and happiness. I don't know if it would protect us from the virus, because probably where the virus was born was not a place for humans to live, and it's not a place for humans to carry it to where we are.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. There is another question from Marion. What to do about the EMF and 5G radiation to which we are exposed? Is there anything that we can do about that?
Yeah, there's things that we do about EMF and 5G. One of them is ginkgo biloba, 100, 120 milligrams twice a day. I'm talking about pure ginkgo. Ginkgo survived the bombs in Japan after World War II, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs. The ginkgo trees were still alive afterwards. So, and also the radiation. If you do get exposed to radiation, you have to be on a program, particularly iodine is one, plus there's different formulas that we're working on. You have to watch the thyroid. Those are the things that we can do. Make sure the iodine levels are healthy. Make sure that you have herbs and plants that have the ability to protect us, and making sure that we're as strong as possible. The viral defense formula does give you some protection.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. And just as a reminder, in general, we do a lot of detox programs, especially Dr. Cohen is a master at this, to help people to detox heavy metals, toxins, chemicals, plastic. So if you are guys interested in what we offer, you can always get in touch with us. And that can be as simple as some dietary changes, changing your water, or having some protocols that we offer here at the office. So we're going to go into meditation right now. Thank you, everyone, very much. We will keep you updated about the continuation of our sessions. As we go into summer, we'll probably take a break, but probably next Monday we will still resume at the usual time, usual place. and we'll keep you updated. But give us your questions and your interests, and we'd be happy to tailor our sessions to your interests, guys. Thank you. You can take us to meditation, Dr. Cohen.
Okay, another thing you can do, I'm sorry I forgot, is garlic. A clove of garlic, raw garlic a day will give you some protection also. Okay, let's do a healing meditation. So let's find something that you've learned is the truth. And remember, the truth means acceptance that something always forms something else. And the more you are attuned to the source, the more clear and pure light you produce. And then our cells resonate, and we're more capable of removing what's toxic to our own organism. And it's something we're going to have to get better at if we're going to stay on this planet. And we're going to have to find a better way to learn to deal with the mental disturbance, with the so many troubled souls that are hurting each other, assuming that somebody else is to blame for their own pain. So find the truth. Realize that as we speak, every cell of your body is creating a vibration of healing that's original source is truth. That each one of us, and I include all sentient beings, not just humans, are receiving that. And it's resonating with all levels of our own structure. And it's traveling through 10 spheres, 4 worlds, and 36 aspects. And we're constantly reassembling them. But those numbers are the original numbers that form life in every multiverse that exists. And each level of consciousness is when those aspects are reassembled into a different story or a different relationship. So watch your breath. Visualize that every one of your cells each one of your levels of developmental consciousness, each one of your nervous system, your hormonal system are all vibrating. And the vibrations form geometry that creates form. And within that form, we make choices, and that produces consciousness. I chose healing and being genuine. Now's a good time for you, each one of you, to make your own choices. There are no wrong choices, except the ones that are hurtful. So take a few moments, experience yourself bathed with pure and clear light. with multiple potential, then ultimately each one of us chooses which school to dominate our experience on this earth. The school of truth or the school of love. Each one of those stimulates each other. Choose whether you can tolerate the pain that's all around us, keeping in mind that pain is only frustration. When you're not expressing your own truth, you become frustrated. And if you're toxic and you don't have the self-discipline, you might tend to take it out on others. So we're going to eliminate that tonight. Take a few moments. Choose your priorities. Allow yourself to be an expression of light. And I'll join you shortly. Now take a moment and self-examine. Utilize your own truth and how you would like the light going through you to regenerate what isn't yours, that you started becoming confused and you took ownership for something that doesn't come from your core existence. Take a few moments and I'll join you shortly. Now take a few moments and see yourself living a life of compassion, harmony, and purpose. And remember, each one of you has a purpose to express something that benefits everyone, that has never existed before you, that produces ultimate reality and not self-absorbed, selfish reality, but something unique. Feel yourself getting rewarded for working so hard to produce an elegant, compassionate consciousness that becomes the container for something unique and beneficial for all of us. You have much more energy and power. Please use it wisely. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take a deep breath, fully awake, and fully regenerated. Good night.